When someone hides an affair, they rarely do it with loud lies. They do it with small changes, so tiny you could almost miss them. A shift in tone. A different way of texting. An excuse that sounds ordinary, but feels slightly off. These aren't random, they are the mind cracking under the pressure of secrecy. Psychologists have long warned that the brain struggles to balance guilt and normal life. That struggle leaks out, not in dramatic moments, but in everyday details. And those details are often the only warnings you'll ever get. In this video, we're breaking down 5 subtle changes, tiny adjustments in words, actions, and emotional patterns that reveal when a woman is hiding an affair. Because betrayal doesn't only live in what she does behind your back. It lives in the cracks of how she speaks, how she moves, and how she explains the world around her. Before we peel back these layers of hidden behavior, hit like and subscribe. The shift in language. When someone hides an affair, the first thing that changes isn't where they go. It's how they speak. Words are the mirrors of the mind, and when the mind carries guilt, those mirrors distort. You may not catch it at first. She'll still talk, still laugh, still tell you about her day. But listen closer, and you'll notice the rhythm of her words is different. Psychologists who study deception often say language is one of the most reliable leaks of hidden truth. Why? Because speaking feels automatic. We talk without thinking about every word. But when a secret sits in the back of the brain, it interferes with that automatic flow. Suddenly, a person becomes vague where they used to be specific. Instead of, "I had dinner with Sarah at 7, it becomes, "I went out with some friends." The details are blurred, not because she forgot, but because precision feels dangerous. Another shift is in pronouns. Research in linguistic psychology shows liars often avoid "I" statements. A woman hiding an affair may unconsciously distance herself by speaking in general terms. Instead of "I was busy," she might say, "Things have been busy." Instead of "I went out," she might say, "We went out." The language becomes less personal, less tied to her. This is not random, it's a protective move. You'll also notice a new dependence on filler excuses. Words like "just" and "only" start appearing more often. "I was just tired." "It was only work." These softeners are psychological shields, designed to make explanations sound smaller, safer, less suspicious. But when every answer carries a cushion, it stops sounding natural. Guilt also changes tone. A conversation that once flowed warmly might now sound flat or clipped. Or she may go the opposite way, overcompensating with forced sweetness. Both are signs of pressure leaking into language. Real emotions flow smoothly. False ones come with edges. One of the most telling shifts comes during conflict. If you question something, instead of answering directly, she may twist the conversation. "Why don't you trust me?" Notice the move. The focus shifts from her actions to your doubts. That's not clarity, it's deflection. And it usually hides more than it reveals. Even humor can betray guilt. Jokes at the wrong moment, laughter instead of answers, or a sudden light-hearted tone when you raise a serious question, these are tactics the mind uses to dodge pressure. But forced humor leaves an echo. It feels off, and your instincts will notice. The unsettling part is that none of these signals are dramatic. They are small, almost invisible, unless you're paying attention. But taken together, they form a pattern. Language is never just language. It's a psychological map. And when someone is hiding betrayal, that map leads straight to the truth they are trying to bury. The change in emotional energy. When someone is faithful, their emotional energy has a rhythm. The warmth in their voice, the consistency in their attention, the way they lean in during conversations, all of it forms a pattern you can feel. But when she starts hiding an affair, that rhythm breaks. Not always in dramatic ways, but in subtle drops and shifts you can sense if you're paying attention. Psychologists studying relationships have found that attention is one of the first resources to be divided. A woman who is emotionally invested elsewhere doesn't stop caring completely, she simply spreads her energy thinner. You'll notice this in the smallest moments. Where she once asked about your day with real curiosity, now the questions feel routine, like a box being checked. The emotional charge behind her words is weaker, even if the words themselves haven't changed. You'll also feel it in physical presence. She may still sit beside you, still share space, but her energy seems distant, like she's in two places at once. That's not your imagination. It's the mind trying to balance two emotional worlds, and one always leaks into the other. Another shift happens in emotional responsiveness. In healthy connection, partners naturally mirror each other. If you're excited, they light up; if you're stressed, they soften. But when someone's heart is drifting, that mirroring fades. You might share good news and get only a flat smile. You might open up about stress and feel brushed off. It isn't that she doesn't hear you, it's that her emotions are anchored elsewhere. Some women in affairs even overcompensate. Instead of being flat, they suddenly pour on extra affection, texts filled with heart emojis, random compliments, unexpected sweetness. At first, it feels reassuring. But look closer. The timing often follows moments of guilt, after she's distant, after she's gone longer than usual without contact. This isn't natural warmth. It's guilt converted into performance. The deeper cost of divided emotional energy is inconsistency. One day she seems close, the next she seems cold. One evening she's talkative, the next she's quiet. This push-pull cycle isn't about mood swings, it's the tension of managing two emotional realities. Psychologists call this emotional leakage, when feelings for one person bleed into interactions with another. And here's the haunting part: your instincts usually notice before your logic does. You might not be able to point to a single phrase or gesture, but something feels different. The warmth doesn't reach as far. The attention feels fractured. The energy that once belonged fully to you now feels borrowed, shared, thinned out. This is why betrayal is so damaging. It isn't just the act of infidelity, it's the quiet theft of emotional presence. When she hides an affair, she isn't only keeping secrets. She's giving away energy that once held you, leaving you with echoes instead of connection. The new patterns of secrecy doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in slowly, like a shadow that grows longer with time. When a woman hides an affair, she rarely announces it with dramatic lies. Instead, it's the tiny patterns that change, the little shifts in how she shares her world with you. One of the first changes is in her phone behavior. Not necessarily hiding the device outright, but changing how she relates to it. Maybe the screen starts facing down more often. Maybe she takes it with her to the bathroom, something she never used to do. These aren't random habits, they are small barriers. She's creating a buffer zone, a space where you don't have full access anymore. Psychologists studying deception say secrecy always requires energy. It takes planning, monitoring, and constant small adjustments to keep a lie hidden. That's why you'll notice her becoming more careful with details. If you ask, "What did you do today?" her answers may shrink. Less detail, more vagueness, because the more she says, the more she risks slipping. This isn't about bad memory. It's about active editing. At the same time, you might see inconsistencies. A sudden mention of a coworker who was never part of her stories before. A timeline that doesn't quite add up. A casual outing she explains twice, but with slightly different versions. These contradictions may seem harmless alone, but together, they signal a pattern of narrative control. Another form of secrecy isn't about hiding, it's about over-explaining. Ironically, people who keep secrets sometimes talk too much. She might pile on unnecessary details to make her story sound believable. Psychologists call this information management, offering just enough to steer suspicion away, but not enough to feel authentic. That's why her explanations sometimes feel rehearsed, almost like she's performing instead of simply sharing. Then there's the silence. Conversations that once flowed naturally now hit dead ends. She shares less, asks less, and slowly builds an invisible wall. At first, you might explain it away as stress or busyness. But over time, you realize it isn't about life getting busier, it's about life being split. Even digital patterns shift. She might stay up later, texting under the guise of scrolling. Or she starts deleting call logs, clearing chats, or setting new privacy locks. These changes might look small, but they reveal a deeper truth: secrecy leaves fingerprints. It leaves patterns in behavior, routines, and even in how she carries herself around you. What makes secrecy so dangerous is its double edge. On one side, it protects her hidden life. On the other, it slowly poisons the connection with you. Because every secret demands distance. Every hidden message demands silence. And over time, those small distances grow into a gulf. Here's the unsettling truth: secrets are never just about what's hidden. They are about what's stolen: the openness, the vulnerability, the trust that once made a relationship feel safe. When she hides an affair, what's being taken from you isn't just fidelity. It's the simple comfort of knowing her world is fully open to you. The physical and behavioral shifts: when a woman begins hiding an affair, her body often speaks before her words do. You don't need to be a psychologist to notice it. The body carries truth even when the mouth tries to bury it. These changes aren't always obvious, but they gather quietly, piece by piece, until the picture becomes impossible to ignore. One of the first signs is physical distancing. She may no longer lean into you the way she used to. Hugs feel lighter, kisses shorter, touches less frequent. It's not that affection disappears completely, sometimes it even swings the other way. She might suddenly become more affectionate, but it feels exaggerated, almost performative. Psychologists call this compensatory behavior, an unconscious attempt to cover guilt by adding more warmth. But real intimacy has a rhythm, and when that rhythm breaks, you can feel it. Clothing and appearance also change. Maybe she starts dressing differently, not just for herself, but with a new kind of care. A sudden interest in new outfits, perfumes, or makeup can sometimes be about self-improvement. But when it appears abruptly, and especially if it coincides with more secrecy, it raises questions. Who is she trying to impress? Why now? Her body language can also reveal avoidance. Eye contact fades during conversations. She may cross her arms more often, or angle her body slightly away when you sit together. Micro-expressions, those fleeting flashes of emotion, become harder to hide. Guilt can show up as a brief downward glance, a forced smile, or an awkward pause that lingers a moment too long. Behaviorally, routines shift. She may suddenly have extra work hours, new hobbies that don't include you, or unexplained absences in her schedule. And when you ask, her answers might sound too smooth, too rehearsed, like lines practiced in front of a mirror. In truth, they often are. Studies on deception show that liars frequently prepare their cover stories in advance, making their responses unnaturally polished. There's also the energy shift. A woman hiding an affair often becomes more restless, more distracted. She laughs at her phone in ways she doesn't explain. She zones out during conversations, lost in another world you can't access. At times, you may feel like you're living beside her, but not with her, as if part of her attention has permanently moved elsewhere. Another subtle sign is irritability. She may grow short-tempered over small things that never bothered her before. Why? Because keeping secrets is mentally exhausting. Research shows that lying increases cognitive load. It literally takes more brainpower to maintain the lie. This strain often leaks out as frustration or impatience with the people closest to her. Then there's the biggest behavioral contradiction: she might accuse you. Projection is a common defense mechanism. When guilt becomes too heavy, it flips outward. She might suddenly question your loyalty, your phone habits, or your schedule. This isn't about suspicion, it's about deflection. By turning the spotlight onto you, she pulls it away from herself. These physical and behavioral shifts are powerful because they are harder to fake. Words can be edited, stories rehearsed. But the body resists performance. Sooner or later, guilt bends posture, stress changes tone, and secrecy leaves a trail. What you're seeing isn't just cheating behavior. It's the weight of a double life pressing down on her. And the body, more honest than the lips, always cracks first. The subtle emotional disconnect: emotional intimacy is what separates a relationship from a simple partnership. It's not just about living together or sharing responsibilities, it's about being each other's safe place. When a woman begins hiding an affair, this bond is the first thing to quietly erode. And unlike physical changes or sudden habits, emotional distance is harder to measure, but far more painful to feel. It starts small. Conversations become shorter, less meaningful. You may notice she doesn't ask about your day the way she used to, or when she does, her interest feels mechanical, like she's checking a box. These little absences add up. Over time, the warmth you once relied on feels replaced by polite distance. Psychologists often describe this as emotional withdrawal. When someone invests their emotions in another person outside the relationship, they begin to pull that energy away from their partner. It's not always intentional, it's a natural consequence of dividing attention. But for the person on the receiving end, it feels like being left in a cold room where the fire has slowly gone out. One of the clearest signs is in how she listens, or doesn't. When you share something personal, she may respond with generic nods or quick replies, as though her mind is somewhere else. She used to remember details, ask follow-up questions, show concern. Now, her emotional presence fades like an echo. Another shift comes in how she shares her own feelings. Where she once opened up about her fears, dreams, or frustrations, she now guards herself. Vulnerability, which builds trust, is replaced with vague answers. Why? Because her emotional vulnerability is being spent elsewhere. Secrets require walls, and those walls block not only the truth but also the intimacy that holds a relationship together. Even in conflict, the difference shows. She may avoid arguments altogether, not because she's at peace, but because she's detached. Anger, at least, means engagement. Indifference is worse, it signals she no longer feels invested enough to fight. The silence in these moments can be more painful than any harsh word. Studies on emotional neglect show that humans often experience indifference as more damaging than outright hostility. Being ignored chips away at self-worth, leaving one to wonder, am I invisible to her now? There's also a subtle absence of future talk. Couples naturally plan ahead, whether it's vacations, events, or simple routines. But when she begins hiding an affair, the future together grows blurry. She may avoid making plans, or her excitement for shared goals quietly disappears. The life you were building together feels like it's missing from her imagination. Perhaps the deepest cut comes from the loss of safety. Relationships thrive when both partners feel they can fall apart in front of each other. But when her heart begins to live elsewhere, you sense that you no longer have access to that sacred space. You're still there physically, but emotionally, she has moved to another room, locked the door, and left you standing outside. This is the final stage of concealment, not the dramatic lies, not the suspicious changes, but the quiet absence of love's heartbeat. And the most haunting part is this: she doesn't need to confess for you to know. The silence, the distance, the hollow in her eyes, it speaks louder than words ever could.